Today we're going to look at 3 news stories and a big update to this channel. Big favor before we dive in is to hit the like button, and if you know someone that might benefit, share this with them. First up, we have Southwest and China Airlines announcing a partnership. So in case you didn't know, China Airlines is one of Taiwan's major airlines, and a pretty good product, especially for business. As much as I love it though, it kind of feels like a nothing burger at the moment. Main reason being that this is an interline agreement and not code share, so there's no shared benefits. We also don't know if we can use Southwest points for these flights to Taiwan. The thing too is that even if you can use points, it might work the way it does right now. So instead of there being an award chart like with other airlines and other programs, where it's a fixed price for business and it doesn't really fluctuate that much, it's going to be based off the retail price, making it very expensive. So instead of that business class flight costing 70k points, it might cost 300k. Would love to be proven wrong though. Next up is Hyatt launching a new brand called Unscripted. It's going to be upscale but under the Essentials portfolio. They're also going to be allowing the hotels to have their own voice and branding. My read of it is that it's going to be similar to the Unbound collection with Hyatt, so this is what you're seeing on screen right now. This is Hotel Toronmon Hills in Tokyo, which is part of Unbound, which doesn't really feel like a Hyatt. Definitely a nicer hotel with an interesting vibe, but still more focused on the essentials. For a lot of people, if someone didn't tell you, then you wouldn't even know it was a Hyatt. One question I've wondered and I've gotten is why do hotels have so many brands instead of just a few? I think the main reason being that a lot of people don't like mega chains. So for example, right now they have 48 Park Hyatts, 32 Andazes, and 20 Unbounds. Each of those have their own voice and signature, and it feels like you are staying somewhere different. Contrast this to if they just had 100 Park Hyatts, you would kind of look at Park Hyatts worse. That's actually a pretty good tangent to the next story, that there's now an LXR in Paris called Saks Paris. In case you didn't know, LXR is one of the soft brands within Hilton, and it's kind of the top one. The focus is on independent hotels that have their own brand equity and more interesting experiences. We've stayed at 5 of these, and the vibe is different for each one. Crockford's feels like you're a high roller in Vegas, while the one in Santa Monica makes you feel relaxed and like you're in a movie. The one in Kyoto makes you feel like movies don't even exist, while the one in Waikiki Beach is a nice escape from the crowds, while the one in Seattle feels more standard. Again, each one feels different. The one in Paris is 2 kilometers from the Eiffel Tower and under 3 to the Louvre, so 1.2 and 1.8 miles respectively. Retail price can vary quite a bit from the $600 range to close to $1,000. From the Reddit post I saw, it's a pretty good view of the Eiffel Tower and of the city. Hilton does have a lot of brands under it, which tends to shock a lot of non-hotel people. So yes, you have the Hilton namesake and more affordable options like DoubleTree, but also fancy picks like Waldorf Astoria, LXR, and Conrad. Hilton points work for those expensive ones, and that's where the value tends to be. Same thing with the free night rewards that a lot of people stack. You do need to find standard room availability, but pretty easy here. Best way to do this is to go to the website and shop by price so you can see the whole calendar. So this is the month of June, you can see the whole calendar, and then you press use points in the top left. From there, you can see the points calendar and the days that have standard room availability, so the ones that work for the certificates, and also when you'd probably want to use points. For example, it doesn't really make sense to use 624k points when you could otherwise use 110k. Overlaying the retail price of the points price, you can kind of see when it makes sense to use points and when you'd rather pay cash or maybe stay somewhere else. So for example, for the 13th, 14th, and 15th, I would definitely use points, but for let's say the 12th, that might be worth paying out of pocket. I'm more than happy to pay a $550 annual fee or even higher to get a free night at one of these hotels, elite status, and also a bunch of credits. I know people hate credits, but that's the cherry on top of this. Especially when you consider that normal non-LXR type Hiltons, so Hilton Paris Opera, it's still not cheap anyways, it's still about $400, $500. Your mileage may vary, but if you stack Aspire cards and you like travel, it feels like a pretty good deal. If you're looking for another good deal, consider today's sponsor, Moomoo. They're currently offering up to 60 free stocks and 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. There's a few levels to this. You're getting 5 free stocks for depositing $100, an extra 20 for depositing a total of $2,000, and 35 more for depositing a total of $5,000. Deposits need to settle by July 31st, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Outside of the bonus, there's a ton of cool features. You gain access to dozens of news platforms that would otherwise charge you a monthly subscription, like Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Bloomberg, and Reuters. They also have a ton of tools like company earning insights and analyst ratings. They're a registered brokerage that's regulated by FINRA. They're also a member with SIPC. The current promotion ends July 31st, 2025. If you're interested, check out AskSebby.com/Moomoo or use the link down below. Pretty solid intro bonus if you are looking to try something new. Okay, going to the channel update, this year started on a sour note. It pretty much involved me deleting 80% of my videos, any that mentioned Paw Patrol. So this screenshot was taken mid-process, but I went from like 1200 or 1300 videos down to 920, and now trimmed down to about 300 something. So about 1,000 videos gone. For me at least, and I know it sounds super dumb, but it kind of felt like the burning of Alexandria. I also wasn't the only one, so Daily Drop was affected as well. Let's talk about what happened, why it happened, and what's happening moving forwards. Long story short, but financial regulators were aggressively suing fintechs and financial entities. Main issue being supervision of social media influencers and misleading communications. A lot of this around incorrect information and misrepresentation. So for example, in the case of M1, they pointed to an influencer advertising M1 Finance's margin lending program, stating that customers could pay the margin loans back at any time. That's not the case though for margin as a whole and M1's program. You might get margin called and they might force a sale of your investments if it hits a certain level. On the brokerage side, this is why I now have to have disclosures, even though it's technically on their sites as well. The same problem exists on the credit card side, but with larger consequences. The main issue is when people say materially incorrect things, which misleads normies. Some pretty obvious ones being different annual fees, wrong multipliers, or non-existent benefits or perks. For example, let's say you sign up for this card and you get free AirPods. That's not what's technically happening. Yes, you have to sign up, but you also have to hit, let's say, 200 and spend, and do that within 3 months of account opening, and then you technically get $200 as a statement credit, which you can then spend on AirPods if you want to, but it's not open the card to get AirPods. A lot of us know that there's caveats and that there's terms and stuff, but other people don't, and when they don't, they complain. Another one I see a lot is travel value. There's a fair share of people that think they can hit one intro bonus for one card and fly a family of 4 round trip business class to Asia and back. In contrast, a lot of us who have been in the space know that each intro bonus is about 1 business class flight depending on the program and airline. I also try to show award charts and stuff and how the programs work at the time of filming. And now I've also tried to show an availability with the caveat that last minute and looking very far in advance, so when you're out tends to be the easiest. So right now it's June 9th and you see a bunch of dates for the middle of June and end of June, and then after that it's pretty much either November or April of 2026. The way I present stuff is the way my brain works and kind of how I go through things, but I know other people are not as thorough. And to be fair, I think I am a bit of a weirdo compared to the other creators in the space. I don't think I've covered this, but my background is finance and accounting. That's why I studied. I used to work at a Big 4 accounting firm and audit. Ended up moving to M&A tax for a bit before becoming a founder and doing tech stuff. Even now, for my full-time job, what I do day to day, a lot of it is research and analyzing data. Also why a lot of these are filmed at very weird times, like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Also why my Whoop says I'm apparently aging really fast due to lack of sleep, even though I try to work out and stuff. But yeah, if you are someone that's watched for a while, you know that I try to cite information, especially non-generally understood information. At the same time, I try to not share things that will break the space. Whether that's gravy trains, annual fee refund tricks, especially if you live in Boston, or non-public links that might work, but might also get you banned. I know about this stuff because I'm in the same Discord groups and the same Chinese communities, but yeah, anything that's not on Reddit or Flyer Talk that's very publicly visible, I try to be careful with. Outside of wrong information, a lot of companies don't like when you use their IP. So for example, they'll happily argue that you don't have permission to use their logos. They're out of business now, so I'll happily share this, but First Republic Bank was a very big proponent of this, where they would happily send you cease and desist when you talked about their offers, even if it was competitive, even if you were talking positively about it. And to be fair, you might be in the right, you probably could argue this, but it still feels like a lose-lose situation and just not worth your time and money. I live in San Francisco, and the average rate for a lawyer to talk to you for even the consultation is probably about $300 to $400 an hour. In my experience using lawyers for stuff like this, it ends up being like 5 to 10 hours, so you're still paying almost $2,000 to $4,000 to defend yourself. Even when they are okay with using their IP, it might not be in a reasonable way. So the best example of this is credit card images, because that technically is their IP as well. I've had legal departments of banks tell me to switch out images in videos. So that's not really how YouTube works other than the cover picture. If I put a picture of a dog right here in the corner, I can't change that into a cat after the fact. My choice is pretty much to take down the entire video, swap out the asset and replace it, and re-upload the video. And they want this every time the card changes. So let's say the color changes by a little bit, they add an NFC tag, or they change the card entirely. If you've been on YouTube for a while, a lot of people don't like when you re-upload exactly the same video with no material changes other than, I guess, the color of the card. One obvious question is, why can other people do things, but not me? I wonder exactly the same thing. I don't know why, but sometimes I do feel like I am being held to a different standard compared to other people. A lot of other people I talk to in the space don't seem to get trademark and copyright complaints that I often get. Also, I don't talk about certain topics because I know I'm going to get a takedown request, and it's not worth filming, researching, editing, doing all of this stuff to then take it down after maybe a few days. So I think part of it is that there are just a lot of people that don't like me, and I kind of am aggravating to a lot of people. Another part of it, I think, is branding and what the messaging is. So when you have someone like me analyzing numbers, like looking at return on spend and doing all this math stuff, putting a bunch of math on the screen, that looks way too confusing, and then people think it's too complicated for them. Instead, most banks go for the more fun vibes and the more kind of travel influencer route. So imagine if I was a girl in a sundress and like a little hat or something, kind of walking and talking about how happy I am getting 4x back or 10x back on dining. Same thing with most hotels and airline flight stuff. I think there are some people that think I get it comped and it's all free. In fact, it's all either points or I'm paying out of pocket for it. If for most hotels and for most airlines, I don't really fit into what they're looking for as marketing. If anything, I feel like I'm the exact opposite of what they want. They would rather me not go to their hotels. For example, for Air France, even if I put on a red shirt, I don't think I'm giving off the same vibes. I think another part of it too is target audience. So my largest demo is actually more corporate-y, law, tech, finance. The largest group being 35 to 44, and then 45 to 55. So I think compared to some other channels, I'm probably being served to the people that look at the stuff and they're like, this is not supposed to be online. We don't like this stuff. Funny enough, you would think that's new grads traveling on a budget, but it's almost always people who make a pretty good salary already, but who don't want to blow their investments or their savings accounts on anniversary trips to keep player 2 happy. But yeah, otherwise, I'm pretty confused as well because other people that also have links, very, very similar ones, if not exactly the same, don't seem to have the same constraints and the same requirements. Moving forwards though, I think we are going to be in a good spot. The caveat being that I have to have more disclosures and kind of mention and show that the information is accurate at the time of publishing, but might not be in the future. So something's accurate right now, but might not be in a week, a month, or a year. For example, let's say I had a video in the past saying that the annual fee for a credit card was $450, and now let's say it's $550 or $795. The issue being that someone could watch that old video and then say that they were misled because the card name is the same, and then they apply for the card and then they get angry at the bank and then try to sue the bank over it. Even still with this, I'm going to be careful about when I mention them, and I'm going to try to have it self-contained, especially when the main focus of the video isn't them. I don't really want to be in a position where I do a news roundup and I mention one issuer for 30 seconds, and then because of that in the future, if they change their mind on what happens, then I have to take down the entire video and end up deleting another 1,000 videos. At least if it is self-contained, it won't feel as bad. I'm pretty stoic normally, but the start of this year was not fun. I ended up spending a weekend or two going through my whole portfolio of stuff and then like deleting everything. I don't want to put myself in that position where I feel that way again. And to be fair, I understand their position as well, given the risk. But yeah, it's not really great, especially when you have yourself been pretty careful about messaging. Definitely an interesting chapter of this book. And if you are someone that's been reading for a while or watching for a while, thank you for that. Reminder that if you want to learn about cards from, ironically, pretty much any issuer out there and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. For a lot of cards, we also have calculators, the idea being that you want to run the numbers for your situation. So if there's a credit there and you hate it, you want to mark it down, then mark it down by 50% or mark it down to 0. If you Google AskSebby card name worth it or calculator, it should pop up. As always, make sure the links are competitive, that the cards actually make sense for you, but otherwise, it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Also, thank you to Moomoo for sponsoring today's video. If you made it to this point, leave an ego emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, do you think Southwest points will start to be worth more with these new partnerships and everything going on, or stay as flat value? Number 2, where do you end up staying when you go to Paris? And number 3, where do you use your Hilton free night rewards? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time. Also, in case you're wondering, filming does take a bit longer than you might think. I'm not the best of it, but even other people that are good at it, it's still generally not a one-take thing. It's about, I'd say about 30. So that's a good example of it, where you stutter and you might redo the whole sentence. But I'd say that it would be about 30 minutes for every 10 minutes of a YouTube video. That's also why I tend to almost lose my voice towards the end of it, because I'm speaking for a very long time and yeah, kind of just running really fast in my head.